You know, I don't want to deny that you can have great philosophers like Wittgenstein. I think Wittgenstein really did not have a deep... I sometimes tease my students. I say, you probably know more about the history of philosophy in terms of what philosophers really said than Wittgenstein ever did. But Wittgenstein, you know, in my opinion, the two great philosophers of the 20th century are Wittgenstein and Heidegger. Well, I mean, Dewey, I would not say is a great philosopher. I think that in the same, I mean, they had a philosophy of revolutionizing things, but I would certainly want to, I mean, even though I identify with the pragmatist, I would say that the pragmatic orientation is closer to the truth. And indeed, what's so interesting about both Wittgenstein and Heidegger is the pragmatic themes. I want to be very clear. I don't want to say they're pragmatists, but there are pragmatic themes in both of these thinkers, which are very, I mean, that's part of my thesis about, you know, that you can look at 20th century and see the development in novel ways of themes that were originally there in the pragmatic thinkers. And I want to emphasize, themes, not theses. Certainly the rebellion against the kind of Cartesian model of philosophy. I mean, Peirce, in his famous essays in 1868, says that most modern philosophy has been influenced by Cartesian and that he wants to see as a kind of alternative. We have to make a distinction between Descartes and Cartesianism. But the emphasis on the individual subject, the idea of immutable doubt, the conception of foundationalism, these are all things which are criticized by pragmatists. So I would see as a characteristic pragmatics is an alternative model to a foundationalist model of epistemology and metaphysics, which is seen in the notion of a self-corrective, ongoing conception of inquiry. The theme of fallibilism, that any theme, any idea can be challenged, though not all at once. That inquiry is self-corrective. The tremendous importance of the community of inquirers or the community of interpreters as being the basis for testing and validating type of knowledge. The seriousness with which these thinkers take contingency and chance is another kind of characteristic, developed very differently by all these thinkers, but it orients one. And the idea, I'm very sympathetic, of course, with the theme that becomes more evident in James and Dewey and Mead, that philosophy has a role to play in shaping human praxis. Not in a direct way, but in a kind of critical way, in a formative way. These would be some of the themes and that I see there. And if you take them as themes in a general level, then there are ways in which you can see, some people may not like the way in which Rorty develops them, but you can recognize that he's concerned with certain of these themes, which you'll also find in James and Dewey. I mean, when I say that, and you can have grand arguments, I personally think that, I mean, in fact, many of my disputes with Dick Rorty have been about, I'm trying to preserve an aspect of pragmatism which I think he wants to dismiss. And we argue about these things.